Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot Podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. Welcome to episode number 81 of the GLP, the Glum Lot Podcast, the GLP.
You know me.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
You down with GLP?
You know me.
All right. We want to remind our listeners to join our Facebook group where they get the first drop on all the new episodes, as well as interesting tidbits here and there about the podcast, and become part of our community.
Yes.
And also like us on the social medias. We appreciate
and communicate
that.
with us.
Communicate with us, man. Email us at the Glum Lot Podcast at gmail.com if you would. So we're always looking for new people to have on the show, too. So if you or you know somebody that would be good on the show, please give us a jingle on the old email and we'll...
Yeah, if you've never told your story, we'll help you through it.
You've got mail.
Your story is important. So
that's right. Could help someone. So what's on your mind?
Well, that involves communication, right?
Yeah, it does.
That's one thing that I've come to realize, even after it's been 3 years. I think I would have realized that sooner, but how important communication is throughout this whole program and how much of it there is and how little of it there was when we were doing our worst, right?
We isolated.
Yeah.
We don't want to communicate.
No, nothing. And the communication we did was lies.
Questionable.
Yeah, right. But, right from the get-go, step one, we communicate with ourselves. I got to really look at myself, and I have to admit that I'm powerless, right? And then we have to communicate to our higher power. I'm going to trust you, and then, there's a lot involved, even right to the very end of communicating with other alcoholics.
Yeah, and when you first come in and your communications have been dubious at best, it takes a while to gain trust in what you're going to communicate to people. I know a lot of times people come in, they don't feel they can share at a meeting.
Right.
And I know I just had somebody come to their third meeting the other day, and they were called on, and they shared. It was only for a minute. It was very humble, and he was funny.
Yeah.
And after it, it changed him.
Right.
He felt like he was a part of.
There you go.
And that's such a huge thing because he communicated a little bit.
That's right.
And when you do that, you not only put part of yourself out there, but you let other people in,
Including our families, right?
Yeah,
and so when I communicated a lot of the things that I was learning and my communications increased, our relationship got better, right? Because I wasn't hiding behind things. I was actually expressing, and it could be great things and it could be things that were bothering me. Before I didn't want to express things bothering because I thought I might lose the love, right? Lose my partner, and that's just not the case. That opening that communication allowed for much, much better relationship.
You know what else is kind of cool, too, that I've heard people say is that they were never good in front of a group until they started coming to AA.
Right.
And I think it's just really all about confidence. And when you come into AA and you share from your heart your experience, strength, and hope, you will be accepted, And that's big with people. That could really build self-esteem, confidence, that when you communicate honestly, openly, and willingly, honest, open, and willing, that you're going to get a connection.
That's right.
And those connections are huge in the program.
Yeah, and how important it is in today's world where we don't communicate with each other. We do it artificially.
We can't swipe.
Yeah.
Can't swipe left and right through life. Well, I mean, you can, but...
So communicate, asswipe.
Communicate, yo. All right, so...
anyways, just something I noticed.
Boy, we have an interesting guest today.
We do.
He is not an alcoholic.
What? No way.
He doesn't really have anything to do with AA.
No.
Nope. But he has an experience that he is sharing with the world about his wife, who this disease took her.
Yeah.
And he tells his story, and he also has developed a way to try and help others who are in the same boat as him.
Specifically families.
Families, yep. So he's pretty interesting. And Brian, from what I understand, your wife came across this person on social media, right?
Yeah, she did. And she thought the information that he was providing was very helpful and something that our listeners, not just us alcoholics, to hear how we affect others, but for those of you that listen to hear about this disease, you'll find this very interesting because there's a lot of education that he provides around it.
And we here at the Glum Lot Podcast, we are not AA, although Brett and I absolutely
That's
love
our
AA,
experience.
and we are in it to win it.
Grateful for it.
And we highly recommend it. And but there are other things out there, and we thought it would be interesting to let the listener hear about some of these other things. And if they can help one person, well, then we've done our job.
We've done our job.
So without further delay, let's say hello to Andrew.
Andrew,
welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast.
Hey, Andrew.
I'm happy to be here. Awesome.
So we're so glad you're here. You're coming to us from Temecula, California, right?
Right. Just about an hour north of San Diego. Yep.
So you're a little bit different than our typical guest in that our typical guest on here has a sobriety day, and they tell us about their story, their struggle, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. You're here with us today to share a perspective on alcoholism from a family member who is watching their loved one suffer and go through this disease.
Exactly.
Can you tell us about can you give us a synopsis of the story of what you've gone through?
Yeah, well, I was married for 25 years. My wife passed away a little over 4.5 years ago from alcohol use disorder. I mean, the short story of it is she fell down a flight of stairs. It ruptured her intestines. She was in ICU for 28 days and succumbed to the disease after 12 operations. I mean, it was pretty grisly. But the story is her progression from her early days. When I first met her, she drank a couple glasses of wine. She had grown up in a culture where it was normalized to drink. There was hereditary issues in her life. Her grandmother had died from it. And she had some trauma when she was 16, which I think was a cause of a lot of the reasons why she went down the road that she did. But I was woefully ignorant as a spouse in the early days. I had never been exposed to alcoholism. I didn't grow up in a world where it was normalized. And when you bring that kind of baggage to a family, to someone who's woefully ignorant of what's going to be what you're headed for, it's a rough ride. Yeah. So
did she know what she was in for?
I don't think she did.
Yeah.
I don't think, because I mean, the thing was with my wife was she was a very kind person, which made it difficult. Which she wasn't like a mean drunk or something. She was a very kind, bubbly, outgoing, gregarious person. And the alcohol was just the opposite. So it was very confusing. And it was, there was always a degree of apology and, wanted to make amends, but it just kept getting worse and worse. I mean, glasses of wine turned into bottles, which turned into bigger bottles. And then eventually anything she could get her hands on. It's the natural.
What were some of the first things in her behavior to you that you were like, she didn't used to do that, or not.
I think the consistency and the progression of volume, which was really, very telling. And then, driving around drunk.
Okay,
was usually a good indication,
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time that you spoke up about it, that you confronted her on it?
Boy, I think it was just always a concern. Like maybe you had to pull back a little bit. Even before, we were married. We didn't have our son for almost 6 years. So during that period, we were in I met her when I was 30. We're in our early 30s back then. We had a house on the water. We had parties and stuff.
So it was kind of normal behavior at that point.
Yeah, we were still kind of as an extension of our 20s. And it was kind of normal. I didn't drink that much. It just was never really part of it.
Not your thing.
I never really drank with her. I have more of an athletic background,
Yeah, so she starts consuming larger volumes, and you don't really know much about alcoholism at all, right? You don't really know what it looks like.
I didn't really understand the word,
Yeah.
It's as simple as that sounds now.
Well,
I really didn't get it. I didn't realize that certainly I didn't understand it as a disease.
Well, and she wasn't living under a bridge, panning for money and all those things that people usually associate with that word, right?
Well, that's the thing. We were, we're pretty well off. We I had an insurance brokerage, had a couple houses, cars. We did okay.
Yeah.
I mean, she was an insurance broker with me too. We were both salespeople, and she was a very good salesperson. But eventually, it got in the way.
Yeah.
So your relationship, you say the first 6 years you didn't have kids. During that 6 years, you guys had parties, and you were a couple without kids, so going out, drinking, partying, going out. Not that strange, right?
Not really. No.
Did she tend to get like really hammered sometimes, and it would be concerning, or?
Well, there would be waves. I mean, it would just be normalized that maybe she'd have her regular bottle at night, and then there were waves where that went over the top.
Yeah.
Especially if we had some friends over, it would give her, carte blanche to drink more.
Sure.
When friends were over. So it would include, not just her regular Chardonnay, maybe beer or spirits or whatever anybody else.
More permissions.
It was permission.
Yeah. God, I remember those days. Same way.
I don't think
like any drinker. I mean, it was the habit was, it's a reward system at the end of the day. I think that's how it started.
That's a good way to put it.
Especially it's a stressful day being a salesperson. You come home and the first thing you do, you pop the cork. And on weekends, it's even worse because, you have 2 days where you don't have to be responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's probably a lot of people that have gone through that period where you don't really know what alcoholism looks like. Your spouse or your friend or your child seems to be using alcohol a lot more than you do, but you're wondering, is it me? I mean, is this normal? Are they really not that bad? You know what I mean?
Well, then I would think. See, we would have like Christmas and Thanksgiving with her family, and I was kind of like the odd man out.
Oh, sure, because that was the whole environment.
I mean, they were from Canada. I don't know if I can't say that's not holding against them.
So they were
Canadians. They're drinkers.
Yeah, right. A bunch of hosers.
Yeah, hosers, eh?
But I mean, they all drink wine, and I don't like wine.
Yeah.
I mean, if I drink at all, it's bourbon.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a teetotaler myself, but it's not part of my life.
Now, did things change when your wife was pregnant with your first child?
Well, that was a little dip. She didn't drink. God bless her.
It's so common to hear that.
Yeah, she didn't drink for about 10 months. Didn't have a drink. I mean, it was that important to her.
Right.
I mean, at that point, she was 37. She was 38 when she had our son. Mm-hmm. So she wasn't a spring chicken anymore. It was a very big, very important event in her life. Mm-hmm. But it picked up after that.
Yep. Did you have more children?
No, just we have one son.
Okay. So you have your child, and your son is a baby. Does she start drinking as soon as the delivery is done and she's recuperated? She's back into it?
Probably, but I mean, I think it was weaning off a little bit during that period. And my son was born in 2000, so between 2000 and about 2004, because she was breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Oh. Sure.
So she wasn't heavily into it, but then she couldn't breastfeed, and she had to just go on the formula.
Yeah.
She wasn't able to do that for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Were there any other consequences, job-wise, legal-wise, anything like that from drinking during that period?
Not during that period, but later on, yeah.
It
really started to manifest.
Hadn't progressed to that point.
And then what happens is then the binges, the really violent binges that last like 2-3 weeks, where she's just completely immersed in just being drunk all the time. Those periods became closer and closer and closer together as time, as it progressed.
Yeah. Was there a point at which you had to say something? Like you had to really sit her down and confront her, like, hey, this is unacceptable?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, she had 4 DUIs. I mean, I think the biggest.
Shit. Oh yeah, she was a pro.
I mean, that was later. I mean, and the average person, she got her first DUI in 2014. The average person who's driving around drunk's been driving drunk for 10 years before they get their first one.
Yep, so, I totally believe that.
It wasn't like her first rodeo.
Right. So she gets popped with the first one, and does the court evaluate her for drug and alcohol counseling or anything like that?
Yeah, that's the first time she went to a rehab facility, and I think the motivation was because she got a DUI. and she realized that she had, obviously when you're getting into legal issues, it's time to do something.
Well, especially
about
if you're in sales, right? I mean, was she traveling at all?
No, we worked out of our house.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So we had a territory that was relatively close. I mean, that was part of the problem. I mean, we had a lot of freedom. She had a lot of freedom to do that. And, by the time 2015 came around, I basically had to fire her from the brokerage because she was talking to clients inebriated, and I was getting complaints. And you can't put your business and your license in harm's way at that point. And I said, you can't do this anymore. I mean, that became the beginning of the end around 2015. She had a big, big health scare in 2009, 2010 when she had ascites.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
She had about 50 pounds of fluid that they had to remove from her body. And that was the first time I realized that it was a life or death situation. That was about 10 years before she passed away. And I didn't understand what was going on. A friend came over and she said, what is going on with her? I mean, it looked like she was
her whole abdomen.
It looked like she had triplets. And I had to call 911, and they had to come and take her out of the house, which took about 10 guys because she probably weighed about over 300 pounds at that point.
Yeah.
It was pretty...
Now, did that happen as a result of her alcohol abuse?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. She had been going. She had about a 3-week binge at that period before the ascites really kicked in.
Yeah. Did the doctor sit her down and say, "Look, you're killing yourself"?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And she'd already been to rehab, right?
No, that was 2010. Her first rehab was 2014.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
So she goes to rehab. Does she need to detox early on? Is she that?
Yeah, she always had to go to a detox.
Yeah.
She usually was.
And you go up there and visit her, right?
Well, I'd visit her after 2 weeks, so I'd visit her 3 times. Yeah. The second, third, and fourth week, I picked her up. And, I usually, the first time she went was this place in Palm Springs called Michael's House. Great, wonderful place.
Yeah.
The problem that I had with the rehab is the lack of follow-up work.
Right.
They're not calling you up saying, "Are you going to your meetings? Are you seeking counseling? Are you doing this? Are you doing that?" And
they just throw the doors open and say, "Yep."
Right. Did she have?
We got
did she have it?
Money.
Yeah. Did she have like an aftercare plan?
Well, yeah. They when you leave, they go, "Here's a list of AA meetings you need to go to, or Smart Recovery, or Women for Sobriety. Here's a list of meetings that you should go attend." I mean, to me, it makes about as much sense as you need open heart surgery. Now go do the surgery on yourself.
So
yeah, right.
Did she not go to AA after she got out?
Her downfall, and I think what ultimately was her demise, was the attitude of, "I'm not as bad as those people. So when I go to the meetings, I don't see myself. I don't resonate with these people. I don't have that problem." I'm like,
yeah, and that's not uncommon. And, we make it a point when new people come in to say, don't compare.
Right.
Try to find the commonalities that you have with these people, because everybody is a little bit different. And there always is something worse until you're dead. And then it's like, okay, well.
Can't get worse than that.
Yeah. So she didn't take to the program of AA very well then.
No, in fact, she would go in there and, she had friends and court ordered, she had to have it signed that she went to these meetings.
Yeah.
So she would just go in there every 2 weeks and somebody would sign off 2 weeks worth of meetings, which really pissed me off. So
we hear stories from people that sign their own papers, or, at one point we had stamps with the group name, and people would make their own stamps. I mean, people will do anything to get through the legal system.
Right.
And alcoholics are very tricky people. So she goes to that rehab and she gets out. Her program doesn't really exist. Do you notice that she starts drinking immediately?
Generally, it was within 2 to 3 weeks out of her rehab.
Okay. So some willpower won.
Yeah, she never got a 60-day pin. The only time she went more than 60 days was when she was incarcerated on her 4th DUI for 65 days. That was the longest she ever went sober.
Let me ask you this. This is something I kind of wonder about. As a spouse, and you're watching this happen, what are some of the things that you tried? I know people deliver ultimatums, they leave, there's all these things that people try. What was your experience with that?
Well, a lot of it for me became self-preservation. Hiding car keys, all alcohol in the house was, had to be gone. The ultimatums were always there,
Yeah. It was a full-time job.
It was a full-time, and I think what happened was because I didn't understand what was going on, and I had so much. I literally had to raise our son. I had a business, so I think I was from my standpoint, I was very consumed, kind of in my own world, and we all kind of divided.
Yeah.
So it was compartmentalized. I had my business, and I had to take care of our son when I got home, and she was on the couch and drank. That became almost her job. And a lot of people don't realize. She was in 6 years of her life, 7 rehabs, hospital stays, emergency stays, probably a dozen times. She was incarcerated twice. She had psych holds. She only lived with us about 6 months of the year.
Yeah, holy shit. Now, was she doing anything else besides alcohol?
Well, she had prescription drugs. She had a number of, she had antidepressants. She was taking thyroid medication. I can't even remember all of them. But
none of them good to drink with, though, right?
Every one of them said, "Do not, have alcohol."
Yeah.
She would probably take a handful and a beer.
How did you cope with all this? Did you feel helpless? Did it create a lot of anxiety for you?
I think there's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of reactionary emotions that you have to go through.
Yeah.
But at that point, I really learned a lot because I used to go to the family weekends and the family events to the rehabs. There would be like a family weekend for the rehab, and I learned a lot. Because my attitude towards this is a mental health disease, I thought that was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard.
Of course, yeah.
When I first heard it, I actually laughed, like a lot of people do. And then I think that's when I really changed, when I understood that it was not 100%. She's not 100% culpable for it.
Yeah.
If it is, there's a hereditary issue, but you are 100% culpable for doing something about it.
Right.
There you go.
Well said.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of our listeners are going to ask, well, did he seek out help in Al-Anon? Did you ever go to an Al-Anon meeting or anything like that?
My Al-Anon was this. I have spoken all over the world. I've done about 70 podcasts in 9 different countries. I wrote a 600-page memoir that we got it down to about 350 pages. I make 2 TikToks. I've got almost 100,000 followers just on TikTok, another 50,000 on YouTube.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this for a while because I really want to save people's lives. And I think that's what's making me heal. Is to expose the truth in the family experience.
So you've done research,
a lot of research, and I frequently talk to heads of rehab facilities that interview me for podcasts because they want to understand, the family structure and how it's, all part of it.
Yeah.
And I know that, we spoke a little bit before, and you said that a lot of your of what you talk about is a lot of what Al-Anon talks about too. Like, you didn't cause it, you can't control it. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you found in your experiences?
Well, you mean with my wife specifically?
Well, yeah. More specifically with you, though. Like, what you found which you feel, looking back, could help other people that you learned from this.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to identify that there's a problem. The alcoholic, they have to understand that they have a problem. You can't do anything until that's been established. Look, you have a problem. You have created a pattern, and it has to be confronted. It's affecting your health. It's affecting your productivity, and it's affecting our relationships.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time. So how do you know if someone has a problem? People say, people ask me, I drink this and this much every day. I go, well, don't ask me. Ask your family members if they think it's a problem. Okay. And if you don't have the guts to ask them, then you got a problem. You got a problem.
Yeah.
And if you're too afraid to ask anybody, well, the man in the mirror is answering you.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I've really taken away from it.
Mm-hmm. Once that's established, what do you recommend?
Well, depending on the degree of problem, a person it's all about connection and community. The opposite of addiction. Addiction loves to isolate people. It loves to individualize people and separate people. They need to do the exact opposite. They need to not. If AA is not your game, there's lots of other ones. There's local outpatient facilities, but you got to get around people who are trying to recover. And you need one-on-one counseling. One of the reasons why I have a coaching program, because it fills in a lot of the cracks. People need one-on-one counseling. They need connection. And I like to bring the family in and get their side of it, because everybody has to heal together. You have to bring the family in because, so many families go look at the alcoholic and they say, well, go to rehab, go to detox, and you go fix yourself and then come back to the family. Well, the family isn't educated. Okay, so it has to become, we are going to get through this together, not you go fix yourself and then come back to the home. That's not going to work.
So through this experience, this has become your life's work. And can you lay out basically what the crux of this work is, and how, like you just talked about it a little bit, about how building the community, and that's the bridge to getting better. But you do this, you lay this out in a program that you have. Right. Can you talk about that?
Well, the program is called "There's an Alcoholic in the Family," and I like to bring the family into it because it's a family disease. So I have an initial interview, and usually it's a husband and wife, or it's parents and their teenage to mid-20s son or daughter. That's about 99% of it, that type of relationship, and we set up a game plan.
How can people get a hold of this or access this?
They can go to TikTok. They can go to my website. It's www.analcoholicinthefamily.
Okay. Yeah. And so from that program, you've developed a book that was just released.
Well, the book is separate. But
okay. All right. Can you tell us about the book?
Yeah. Well, the book is called Amanda. You want me to show it to you real quick?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the viewers won't be able to see it, but it is. Yeah. Can you tell us where it's available?
It's called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. Okay. It has a picture on the front. I have lots of pictures of her inside. A lot of people wanted to see pictures of who they're talking about. It starts with the last day, because it's a rush into UCLA. She was 100 miles away, and they gave me 2 hours to get there. That's how the book starts. And then the whole book is a flashback. And a lot of it is the good times. We had a wonderful relationship. We were the best friends. I mean, that's what, it's a heartbreaking story. It's a Shakespearean tragedy, really. Mm-hmm. And then you go through all the different levels and issues and drama and toxicity that we went through until the toil till the end.
And this is available at Amazon and
right now it's available on my website, which you can find on TikTok. It'll be on Amazon on December 12th.
Okay,
awesome.
And the name of the book again is Amanda, A Cautionary Tale.
Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism.
Okay, and you basically you tell the story, right?
It's a story from the family's perspective, from the spouse's perspective.
Yeah.
And the origins of why she was the way she was.
Did you along the way have any victories in your dealing with her disease? Were there any small victories in there?
Personally or with her?
Well, I think the biggest victory was our son. I think that's the greatest thing that came out of our marriage. He's turned into a wonderful kid. He graduated from college last year. He's got his own business.
Does he have a full understanding of what his mother dealt with and went through? And you?
He does, because we've talked about it extensively. I mean, we're very close, and he's been part of this project that I do. So he's very on board with what I do.
So I imagine communication's been very open. And that's another important thing.
Well, I think we bonded so much because we went through the same type of thing with his mother. He was getting very frustrated with it near the end. I mean, he was 19 when she passed away. Yeah, so he dealt with her worst years were from the time he was 13 until she passed away at 19. So unfortunately, his most important years were her worst years. Which is sad in itself.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon in families where alcoholism is can't be treated, or the person won't take help. That the family and the children suffer with it. We're all victims of. I was a victim of my father's alcoholism, right? As well as my own. Can you walk us through a little bit of the a program that you offer for the families? And you already talked about the first thing about you got to identify that there's a problem. What are the next steps?
Well, the thing is, it's customized because every situation is completely different. But in a generic sense, I really want to do a deep dive in what's going on with that person. Why are they drinking? What is the core reason why they're drinking? The alcohol use disorder has nothing or very little to do with the alcohol itself. The person has discovered that it's their solution to whatever their repressed emotion is.
True.
Could be anxiety or stress or depression. Could be dual. I have a lot of people that are PTSD, ADHD, maybe they have bipolar, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia. They could have a physical problem. There's always some issue is the reason why it started, why they are where they are right now. That's
so this deep dive is to try to discover or open a door onto what the underlying issues are, right?
Right, and what the family structure is, what the family is going through, and the general attitude of the family. Which is really important.
And as we know from being alcoholics, no repair can take place unless the drink is first put down. Until the consumption stops, there's no getting better.
Correct.
And do you work with the families and the alcoholics on that part of it?
Yes. Usually it has to stop, or in some cases I've gone over the Sinclair method a little bit, which is called moderation management, where they cut back slowly and then they introduce naltrexone, which is a blocker. There has been some success with that. In my opinion, I think it needs to be stopped, detox cold turkey completely, and it needs to be eradicated from the person's life, coming from the standpoint of the family. Because it's a fantasy world for a late stage alcoholic. Like they're going to slow down. It doesn't work that way.
Right. And I know in AA, our mantra is complete abstinence is the only way. Solution.
I think
it's,
so.
I
have a lot of people that advocate. Are you guys familiar with the Sinclair method?
I'm not. No, I've never heard of it. Can you tell us about it?
Oh yeah, well the Sinclair method it was invented by Dr. Sinclair, obviously, and it's moderation. So you cut back. Say if you're drinking a 24 case of beer a day, you cut it back to 20, 15, 10, 5, and you use naltrexone to work on the cravings. So
so it's like titration and
the behavior behind it is to eventually they call it extinction, which is when you no longer drink, but to think that the alcoholic is going to have that kind of discipline, to me, it's just crazy.
It's crazy.
Well, that's also assuming that alcohol is the true problem, right?
Well, true.
And so, that usually isn't the case. So, it is, as soon as it passes our lips, off we go. But at the same time, when you get rid of that alcohol, a lot of that stuff still exists. So what do you do then?
Well, that's why a lot of patients, that sometimes they might get over the alcohol and then they get into food, so
they're addictions, right?
They're doing a lateral addiction. So unless you've addressed the initial problem, another head's going to pop up. Could be food, could be drugs, could be gambling.
Now, do you have any experience at all with the 12 steps of AA?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. Okay. Is that kind of a blueprint that you have experience with working? It obviously works because many people have become sober through AA, but those 12 steps about a spiritual experience, about cleaning house, making amends, keeping a conscious contact with a higher power, all that stuff.
I think, maybe because I'm in California, a lot of it to me is it's a tad dated.
Okay.
Is a lot of feedback I get is that the higher power thing just does not resonate with a lot of people, and they even though that you're supposed to incorporate that for whatever that is, it seems to be a bit dated in a lot of the people I talk to, and it just does not resonate. So I recommend a lot of people to go to Smart Recovery, or for women, go to Women for Sobriety or the female side of AA, because a lot of my patients are women. you need to go someplace that's going to resonate, because you're not going to go back unless it does resonate with you and you feel like you're getting something out of it.
Yeah, what was that first one you mentioned? Smart?
Yeah, smart recovery. It's more scientifically based, right?
It's more scientifically based. Yeah. It's they do a lot of the stuff that AA does, but it's much more progressive. I can knock AA because, I mean, they're the poster child. I mean, they started organically in the 1930s. They're the reason why. I mean, they've saved millions of people, literally.
Yeah. So it works, but what you're saying is other things can work too.
Yeah, because the percentages of people that it saves, it has gone down. It used to be like 50, 55%. It's more like 20% now.
Yeah, and I know opiates and other drugs have become so prevalent too that all becomes a part of people's addictive, journey, that they're drinking and they're doing opiates and they're doing coke, and you know what I mean?
Right.
So there's usually a big cocktail.
You still have to get to the core issue. I think the most important of the 12 steps is the 9th one, which is you have to reach out and apologize for relationships that you might have put in harm's way when you were inebriated. That shows that you're evolving as a person and you're taking accountability for things that you did when you were inebriated. And I think that's how you grow and really are able to focus and accept.
The making amends portion of the 12 steps is very healing. And, we always say the steps are numbered in order, so that you've got to have some sobriety and some self-reflection and some healing before you can do that. But doing that is hugely important for people.
Oh,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, plus it's important for everybody that's been in your life. People will begin to trust you again if you hold yourself accountable, because, there's a lot of relationships that will not be repairable. And
it's the truth.
Which is unfortunate.
Now, where will people look on social media to find you, like on TikTok?
Well, my my calling card is Red Cigar 1. That's how you can find me. Or just look up my name. You can Google me. There's more stuff on me than there is on Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
Yes, and just for the listener, his name is Andrew Culkin.
My name is Andrew Culkin. Right.
Yeah.
You're no relation to Macaulay?
Yeah, I am related.
Yeah.
Are you?
Distantly, yeah.
Yeah, but my father was his father's, I think it's second or third cousin. Macaulay's either my third or fourth cousin. I met him. They're from New York City. We're from, I was from central New York.
Yeah, yeah.
And there is some connection there. I have met him a couple times, him and his brother. They've got 7 of them. But we have the same name. Someday I always want to say I want to get famous enough so that someday somebody will ask Macaulay Culkin if they're related
to
Andrew
is.
Culkin. Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you related to Andrew?
Related to Andrew? Right. So
there you go.
We could get 1 little ounce of what I have to go through all the time.
So how does your program work? Is it something that's covered by insurance, or?
No, it's actually, it's an individual coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get a lot of people off TikTok and social media because they've seen me and they obviously know who I am.
The whole story,
there's going to be a lot of information in the book on how to get a hold of me. But initially, I set up an initial consultation. It takes about 45 minutes. That call is free. And if they do move forward, it's 8 individual weeks with me. And then after that is as needed. Life happens. If someone dies or you lose a job or some kind of stress, I'm always available.
Is this all you, or do you have staff too?
I have staff. But the actual course is 3.5 hours long. We shot it in studio. It was developed by myself, psychiatrists, and counselors. And we developed this whole course. And there's a lot about education, going over the stages, how to deal with rehabs, understanding intervention, the medications, anabuse, naltrexone. I mean, it's a lot of stuff for families.
A lot of education.
A lot of education. And then the side of it, you have, 8-9 weeks with me or as needed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good because I think a lot of people will go online and they'll get a bit here, a bit there. They'll miss this. They won't get that. But what you're saying is you put it all into a package.
Comprehensive.
It's all comprehensive. And I mean, it's AA, Al-Anon, and a counselor all wrapped up into one.
Yeah. I mean, I know my wife found you through TikTok, right? And she was really impressed with the quality of the information, right? Because obviously she was the wife of an alcoholic.
Right.
And so she found value to that, and that's how, you came to us, because we hopefully, and I'm pretty sure it will, some of our listeners aren't all alcoholics either, right? So we have family members and stuff that listen to us as well, and we know that because they've reached out and said it's helpful. So, but yeah, my wife was interested. In fact,
Well, this disease affects about 50% of the population, either directly or indirectly. Either you've had some kind of malady of addiction, or somebody who does.
Absolutely.
And really, economically, it affects us all. I mean, it affects us annually about $400 billion just in productivity.
Major socioeconomical impact.
Major social impact. I mean, we lose about 14 to 15,000 people a year on our highways from drunk driving, stuff like that. And the healthcare costs are through the roof. I mean, I don't want to go on a tangent, but there's a lot of elements.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. Yeah. Does your course have any thing to do with other types of addictions besides alcohol?
Yeah, generally it's drug and alcohol addiction.
Okay.
Food is really more of you really want to go to a dietitian type of thing. I think that would be more of a specialist, but the fundamental reason why
it's just the same.
It would be the same.
Yeah.
Gambling would be different. I mean, there's actually people for gambling. I think it's a little bit more specialized. For me, it's drug and alcohol or prescription drugs.
Mm-hmm. So you've had success stories, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many, do you know roughly, can you give us the numbers, how many people you've worked with this program?
Well, this year, probably about 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not free either.
That keeps you busy.
I charge.
Yeah.
But it's a write-off. And I mean, I always say, if you don't do this, what else are you going to do?
Right. What are the options, right?
Where you going to? You said AA, you don't like AA, you want to get to the point and you want your family a part of this. Let's get to work. It's about convincing people to get to work, because that's ultimately what they need to do.
Action.
Yeah. Plus, I know that, if you go to rehab, it's really expensive and it can be really disruptive. And there are people who have gone to multiple rehab, well, your wife, that did not have success, that perhaps are looking for something different to try because the rehab experience did not work for them.
Yeah, rehab only
or the family. It didn't work for the family because they don't educate the family.
Right. They're not. Well, you get a family weekend, but if the family knows, a lot of times families not showing up. But I mean, the rehabs are $30,000 to $40,000. That's what they cost. I mean, luckily, I was in the insurance industry. I had lots of insurance, so it didn't really cost me much of anything. Yeah. But I mean, 7 rehabs, that's $230,000.
Yeah.
I mean, her last month in life at UCLA was $2.3 million.
There you go.
I mean, so
I know my father. My father ended up having a liver transplant, and this was a long time ago. But the bill on that was $1.2 million just to have it done,
right?
And that doesn't include years of aftercare and anti-rejection medication and doctor's visits. And like you say, the burden on the healthcare system and on society and all of our insurance and Medicare and all that stuff is just astronomical.
It is astronomical. Yeah.
So everybody's looking for a solution,
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you have anything else you'd like people to know about you and the program and the book?
I'm just excited for the book because I want it to be the go-to book for families from the family perspective. It's also important for recovering alcoholics because so many people have come to me and said, I'm glad I've had that perspective because I don't ever want to do it again. A lot of it is a scared straight. It's scared straight because there's no cure for alcohol use disorder. So you still got to maintain it. So it's good to have something, checks and balances out there.
Yeah.
Something that says, well, I don't want to go back there again. It's good for that, but it's important for families to understand what they're going through with their loved one. And it resonates with so many people.
Okay. And one more time, your website is?
www.alcoholicinthefamily.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Andrew. And, we hope this drives some people your way. so they can find some answers
towards
for
a solution,
themselves. Yeah.
right? Yeah, some
Towards the solution.
information.
I hope it's helped your listeners. Hope it gives some insight into your listeners. Yeah.
Oh, well.
The more options we can provide, the better.
Yeah. So until next time on the Glum Lot Podcast, I'm Mark.
I'm Brett.
Andrew Culkin.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot Podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.